Now here's where the wind starts to holler and the night begins to listen. Nate stood under that moon-washed sky, his heart thumping like a church drum on Sunday morning, while Bella's eyes carried both fear and fire. The sheriff's men were closing in, boots crunching like dry corn stalks, but love don't tremble easy when it's real. Two young hearts, one old river, and a choice that could turn whispers into wildfire. And right there, beneath the hush of the southern night, the story took a turn folks would be talking about for years to come. The sun was sinking low over Willow Creek Farm, painting the fields gold like heaven spilled its light. Nate leaned against the wooden fence, chewing on a blade of grass, listening to the cicadas sing their lazy song. He was a farmer's son, born in the red dirt, raised with calloused hands and steady eyes. Life on the farm followed its rhythm. Sunrise, sweat, supper, sleep. But that summer, something shifted. Down the dusty road came a truck, rattling like bones in a barrel. In the back sat families, migrant workers, tired from travel but hopeful, their faces shaded by hats and dreams. Among them, Nate saw her, Bella. She wore a faded yellow dress that fluttered like a trapped bird, and her dark hair caught the wind as if it belonged to it. Her eyes met his for just a second, long enough to carve her face into his heart. Nate didn't know her name then. He didn't know her story. But something in that look told him, this summer won't be like the last. The workers settled by the river, setting up tents and makeshift kitchens. Nate's father, Mr. Carter, shook hands with their leader and laid down the rules. No trouble, no late-night wandering, no crossing lines. But as the night settled, Nate found himself looking toward the river camp again and again. Firelight flickered between the trees. Laughter floated up like smoke. Somewhere in the middle of it all, Bella's voice rose soft and clear, singing a tune he'd never heard before but would never forget. And just like that, a seed was planted. Not in the soil, but deep in Nate's chest. Something dangerous, something sweet. The next morning, the rooster crowed loud, and Willow Creek Farm came alive with the sound of work. Nate carried feed to the barns, the smell of hay heavy in the air. But his mind wasn't on the chores. It was down by the river, where Bella's camp was waking too. By midday, the migrant workers joined the farmhands in the fields. They moved in rows, picking, cutting, bundling, fast, precise, practiced. Nate spotted Bella working near the far end. Her hands moved quick, her dress streaked with dirt. But her smile, it was like sunlight found its way through the clouds just to touch her. He wanted to talk to her. Lord knows he did. But his father's voice echoed in his head. Stay focused. Those folks are here to work, not make friends. Mr. Carter was strict, the kind of man whose words weighed heavy like church bells. He believed in lines between work and play, between their kind and outsiders. But fate, or maybe mischief, gave Nate a reason. Bella dropped her water jug. It rolled down the small hill right to Nate's boots. He bent down, picked it up, and their eyes met again. Thanks, she said, her voice soft but steady. Anytime, Nate replied, his heart thumping like a drum in a parade. For a moment, it felt like the world paused. The wind stilled. The field grew quiet. And then someone shouted her name, snapping her back to work. She ran off, but Nate kept standing there, holding that moment like a keepsake. That night, under the stars, he couldn't sleep. He heard her song again in his head, that gentle hum mixing with the sound of crickets. Something inside him whispered, go find her. And though he didn't move yet, his heart already had. The third day brought a storm, not of rain, but of whispers. Nate overheard the older hands talking by the barn. They're saying one of them girls has got fire in her eyes. A man chuckled. Yeah, and if Carter's boy ain't careful, he'll get burned, another replied. Nate pretended not to hear, but their words dug into him. Still, his gaze drifted to Bella every chance he got. She was different. While the others worked quietly, she sometimes sang to the rhythm of her work. It wasn't loud, but it carried through the fields like a soft wind. That afternoon, when the sky turned gray and the wind picked up, most workers ran for cover. Bella, stubborn as a rooted tree, stayed behind to finish her row. Nate, seeing her alone, jogged over. "You'll get caught in the rain," he said. "I don't mind the rain," she replied with a half-smile. "Back home, we used to dance in it." The first drops fell cool and sharp, and before Nate could stop himself, he laughed, really laughed, and held out his hand. She took it. There they stood, two young souls in the middle of a field, the rain pouring like blessings, spinning around like they'd known each other forever. From the porch, Mr. Carter watched with eyes hard as thunderclouds. By the time the rain stopped, Nate knew something had changed. They had crossed a line, not with words but with something stronger. And lines, once crossed, are hard to redraw. The days after the rain carried a strange kind of heat. Not from the sun, but from looks and whispers. Folks on the farm noticed the way Nate's eyes wandered too often toward the river. They noticed how Bella's smile lingered a little too long when he passed by. And in a place like Willow Creek, where gossip traveled faster than wind, it didn't take long for that heat to grow. Nate tried to act normal. He rose with the sun, worked the fields, fixed fences, drove the tractor. But no matter what he did, his thoughts circled back to Bella like a hawk over a rabbit. He'd catch a glimpse of her yellow dress between the rows, and his heart would leap like a boy seeing fireworks for the first time. One evening, while the sky burned orange, Nate walked down to the river under the excuse of checking the fence line. He found Bella sitting on a log, her bare feet in the water, singing that same soft tune. "You always sing," he said, stepping closer. "It keeps me from missing home too much," she replied. "Singing makes the world feel smaller." They talked until the stars came out. About her family, who traveled every season to find work. About his life on the farm, how every year felt the same. He told her he wanted something different, something more. She listened with eyes that made him feel seen, truly seen. When he walked back to the house that night, he knew he was walking a dangerous road. But it felt too good to turn around. The following morning, Nate's father was waiting on the porch, arms crossed, eyes like nails. "Where were you last night?" Mr. Carter asked, his voice flat. "Down by the river," Nate said. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. "With them." Mr. Carter's jaw tightened. "I've told you before, son. We keep our lives and they're separate. You got work to do, a future to inherit. Don't throw it away chasing shadows." "She's not a shadow," Nate muttered before he could stop himself. "What did you say?" "Nothing." But it was too late. Mr. Carter's eyes narrowed, and a silence thicker than summer humidity settled between them. Nate knew his father well. When he said a line, it was drawn deep, and Nate had just stepped over it. That day, work felt heavier. His father's gaze followed him like a hawk. At lunch, some of the farmhands teased him. "Careful, farm boy," one said, chuckling. "Those river girls will tangle you up." Nate didn't answer. His hands were calloused, but his heart was soft, and Bella's laughter from across the field kept pulling at him like a tide. That night, he found a note tucked under a loose board by the barn. Written in neat, careful letters. "Meet me by the oak after sundown." It was signed simply, B. He didn't hesitate. When darkness fell, he made his way to the big oak tree at the edge of the fields. She was there, waiting, moonlight pooling around her like silver water. "Nate," she whispered. "I think we're in trouble." Bella's words hung in the night air like a bell still ringing. "My father heard things," she said. "He says Mr. Carter doesn't want any of us getting close to you. He says trouble will come if we keep talking." Nate swallowed hard. "I don't care what they say." "You should," she whispered, stepping closer. "This place has rules. Rules that don't bend easy." He looked into her eyes, saw the fear, the hope, the pull between duty and desire. "Then let's make our own rules," he said softly. They sat beneath that old oak tree, leaning against its rough bark, sharing pieces of their worlds like puzzle parts. She told him about the places she'd seen, the towns that welcomed her family and the ones that didn't. He told her about Willow Creek, about the weight of expectations he never asked for. A wind blew through the branches, whispering secrets only night could hear. Bella laid her head on his shoulder, and for a few stolen moments, the world outside melted away. But in the distance, a light flickered. Someone was out there, watching. Bella stiffened. Nate turned, scanning the dark. A lantern swung once, twice, then disappeared behind the rows. They both knew what that meant. Word would spread. And in a place like Willow Creek, love wasn't just love. It was rebellion. When Nate got back to the house, his heart pounded like hooves on dry ground. He knew what was coming. Lines had been crossed, and the storm was only beginning to gather. The next morning, the storm didn't come with thunder. It came with words, sharp, loud, and meant to sting. Nate had barely stepped into the kitchen when Mr. Carter slammed his coffee cup on the table. "I heard you were out by the oak last night," he said, his voice like gravel. Nate froze. "Who told you?" "Doesn't matter. What matters is you sneaking around like a fool. You think this is a game, boy? That girl's here for work. Not for you to mess up her life, or yours." Nate clenched his fists. "I care about her." Mr. Carter's face hardened even more. "Care? You don't know the meaning of that word yet. That family'll be gone in a few months, and you'll be here cleaning up the mess. I built this farm with my hands, and I won't watch you tear it down over some summer fancy. It's not a fancy." The silence that followed was thick, like air before a downpour. Mr. Carter pointed toward the fields. "You got two choices, Nate. You focus on your work, or you find yourself another roof. I won't have rebellion under my house." Nate walked out without a word, the weight of his father's ultimatum pressing down on his chest. Out in the fields, Bella noticed his quiet. When she passed by, their hands brushed for a second. It was enough to say, "I'm still here." But both of them knew someone else was watching too. The eyes in Willow Creek never stayed closed for long. 2 nights later, the river shimmered under a crooked moon. Nate couldn't sleep. The words his father spoke kept echoing like church bells. But so did Bella's laugh, soft and clear. Finally, he threw on his boots and slipped out the back door. The path to the river was familiar now, marked by the whisper of reeds and the hum of crickets. Bella was waiting by the water, her yellow dress reflecting the moonlight. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "I couldn't stay away," he replied. They sat side by side, their feet dangling in the cool water. She told him her family might move earlier than planned. "There's talk of a new farm up north," she said. "My father doesn't want trouble." Nate felt his chest tighten. "When?" "Maybe in 2 weeks. Maybe sooner." He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. "Then we make these days count," he whispered. She looked at him for a long time, then leaned in until their foreheads touched. The night held them like a secret, but secrets in Willow Creek had a way of slipping through cracks. Behind the trees, a figure moved. A branch snapped. Bella's eyes widened. "Who's there?" Nate shouted, but the figure disappeared into the shadows. The stillness returned, but the air had changed. No longer soft, now sharp. Someone had seen them, and whoever it was, they weren't just passing by. By the next afternoon, whispers flew like dry leaves in the wind. Nate heard them by the barn, by the well, even in the field rows. "They were down by the river again," someone muttered. "Old Carter won't stand for that. Boy's gonna bring trouble on himself and that girl." Bella noticed the stares too. The other workers grew quiet when she passed. Even her father, usually steady as stone, avoided her eyes. That evening, when Nate met her by the oak, her hands were shaking. "My father says we should stay away from each other," she said. "He says folks are talking." "Let them talk," Nate answered. "They don't know us." She stared at him with tears threatening to spill. "But what if talk turns to something worse? We don't belong here the way you do. People like us, we've learned what happens when you step where you shouldn't." Nate stepped closer, gently taking her hands. "I don't care what they say. I know what I feel." She closed her eyes, as if holding onto his words like a prayer. The night wind rustled the leaves above them, whispering promises and warnings all at once. Neither of them noticed the lantern light approaching slowly from behind the trees. It was Mr. Carter. His voice cut through the darkness like a whip. "I warned you, boy." Mr. Carter stood beneath the oak tree, his lantern throwing long shadows that made the night feel small. His jaw was tight, his eyes full of storm. Nate froze, Bella's hands still in his. "So it's true," Mr. Carter said slowly, each word heavy as iron. "My son's sneaking around with a river girl like some fool in a story that never ends well." "Pa," Nate began. "Don't pa me. You knew the rules. You chose to break 'em." Bella stepped back, trembling. "Sir, You hush," he snapped. "Your people are here to work, not stir up trouble. And you, girl, you best keep your distance from my boy." The way he said girl cut deep like she was less than the wind. Nate stepped in front of Bella. "She's not the problem. I made my choice." Mr. Carter's face darkened. "Then you've chosen against your own blood. You think love's enough to change how this world works. It ain't. It never is." The lantern light flickered between them. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mr. Carter turned, voice low and final. "If I catch you out here again, Nate, you won't have a place in my house." He walked away, the light shrinking with his steps, leaving behind the darkness, and two hearts pounding like wild drums. Bella whispered, "Maybe this was a mistake." Nate grabbed her hand. No, the mistake would be giving up. But deep inside, both of them knew the ground beneath their feet had started to crack. The days that followed felt strange. Nate worked under the hot sun, but the farm didn't feel like home anymore. Mr. Carter barely spoke to him, and when he did, it was cold and sharp. The other farmhands watched him with that mix of curiosity and judgment folks get when a boy steps out of line. Down by the river, Bella's camp grew quieter. Her father noticed the tension. One night, he pulled Bella aside. "We don't get involved," he told her. "We work, we keep our heads down, then we move on. That's how we survive." "But he's different," Bella whispered. Her father shook his head. "They all seem different, until the trouble comes." Still, Nate found ways to see her. A passing note under a bucket. A quick touch in the field. A shared glance across the rows. Their love lived in stolen moments, growing stronger because it had to hide. But the farm wasn't blind. One evening, Nate overheard two men at the well. "Old Carter's about had enough," one said. "He's talking about sending them river folks off early." Nate's chest tightened. If Bella's family left, she'd be gone before he could do anything. That night, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, the crickets outside chirping like restless thoughts. He had to make a choice. Stay under his father's rule or follow his heart into the unknown. The next morning, Nate found Bella by the edge of the field, tying up bundles of wheat. Her yellow dress was faded from the sun, her hair tied back loosely. She looked tired, but when she saw him, her eyes lit up like morning light through fog. "They're talking about leaving," Nate said, breathless. "My father's pushing your people out early." Bella's hands froze. "I knew it. He wants us gone before folks start talking more." "Then run away with me," Nate blurted. She turned to him, stunned. "What?" "We can leave this place. There's more out there than Willow Creek. I saved some money. I know how to work. We could make it." Bella looked toward the river, toward her family's camp. "It's not that simple, Nate. My father, my brothers, we move together. I can't just disappear." "Then I'll talk to your father. I'll make him understand." Bella stepped closer, touching his face gently. "You're brave, but this world doesn't bend easy." Still, Nate saw something flicker in her eyes, a small spark of hope fighting against fear. "We have one chance," he said softly, "before they push you out. We take it or we lose it forever." Bella looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Meet me by the river tomorrow night. If we're really doing this, we'll need a plan." And just like that, their love stopped being a secret. It became a mission. The night before their plan was set, Willow Creek held its breath. The fields were quiet, the cicadas loud, and the moon hung low and watchful. Nate couldn't sit still. He paced his room like a caged animal, replaying Bella's words in his head. "Meet me by the river tomorrow night." But nothing in Willow Creek stayed secret for long. As Nate headed out to the barn, he heard voices drifting through the kitchen window. Mr. Carter and two older farmhands were talking in low tones. "They'll be gone by the end of the week," one said. "Good," Mr. Carter replied. "The sooner that girl and her family leave, the better. That boy's lost his senses." Nate clenched his fists. His father's voice cut like a cold wind. "And if he tries anything?" another man asked. Mr. Carter paused. "Then I'll handle it." Nate backed away, his heart pounding like a hammer on steel. He knew then that their plan had to work. If his father caught them, it wouldn't end with harsh words. It would end with walls built too high to climb. That night, Nate snuck down to the river. Bella was already there, sitting by the water's edge with her knees pulled to her chest. She looked up when she saw him, relief and fear tangled in her eyes. "My father's restless," she whispered. "He feels something's coming. We don't have much time." Nate sat beside her, close enough to hear her breath. "Then tomorrow night, we run." They sat there under the stars, making quiet promises in the dark. The world around them felt still, but both knew. This stillness was only the pause before a storm breaks. The next day was hotter than usual. The air pressed down like a wet blanket, and the sky stayed a strange pale color. Everyone on the farm moved slower, as if the heat carried a warning. Nate tried to work like nothing was different, but every sound made him flinch. He caught his father watching him more than once, those eyes like nails, sharp and searching. By midday, Bella found him near the tool shed. She walked quickly, glancing over her shoulder. "My father knows something," she said. "He keeps asking questions. I told him nothing, but Nate, I can't lie to him much longer." "Tonight," Nate whispered. "We go tonight." Bella bit her lip, her hands twisting together. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," he said firmly. "Once they send your family away, it'll be too late. We'll follow the river to the station, catch a train north. I've got enough money for 2 tickets. Her eyes searched his, and for a moment, the fear softened. She nodded. "Okay, tonight." As the sun sank, Nate packed a small bag. Some clothes, money he'd hidden over the years, and a folded photo of his mother he kept in his drawer. His hands shook, but his resolve didn't. Meanwhile, down by the river camp, Bella told her younger sister goodbye in a whisper. She couldn't tell the whole truth, only that she had to go. Her sister hugged her tight. "Don't get lost," she said. Bella held back tears. "I won't." Above them, storm clouds began to gather. Not loud yet, just building quietly, like trouble with patience. That night, the world seemed to hold its breath. The fields were dark, the river loud from the rising wind. Nate slipped out the back door, heart thudding against his ribs. He didn't look back at the house, he couldn't. Bella waited under the big oak, her yellow dress hidden beneath a shawl. She carried a small bag, nothing more. Her hands trembled, but when she saw him, she smiled. "You came," she whispered. "I said I would." They started toward the river path, moving fast but careful, their steps swallowed by the wind. In the distance, thunder grumbled like an old man clearing his throat. They reached the riverbank and followed the water toward the wooden bridge that led to the road. The train station was 2 miles away. If they made it there, they'd be gone before sunrise. But as they reached the bridge, a lantern light appeared on the far side. Nate froze. Someone's there. The light swung closer, revealing Mr. Carter, standing like a wall, the storm wind whipping at his coat. His face was set, his voice low but thunderous. "Where do you think you're going, boy?" Nate's heart dropped into his boots. Bella's hand tightened in his. The storm had finally arrived. The bridge groaned under the weight of the storm and their fear. Nate's father stood on the far end, lantern light cutting through the darkness like a blade. His coat flapped in the wind, his boots planted firm as if the whole earth stood with him. "Pa!" Nate called out, his voice trembling but defiant. Mr. Carter didn't move. "You're not leaving this farm with her." Bella gripped Nate's hand, her heart racing like a trapped bird. Nate took a step forward. "I have to. I love her. Love? Mr. Carter spat the word like it was bitter. You think love puts food on the table? Keeps a roof over your head? That girl's people will be gone by sunrise, and you'll be here, left with the wreckage. You walk across this bridge. Nate, you walk away from everything I've built. The wind howled, rain starting to fall in fat, cold drops. Nate swallowed hard. Maybe I don't want what you built. Not like this. For the first time, his father's face flickered. Something between anger and heartbreak. You're my son. And I'm still your son, Nate said, voice shaking. But I'm not your shadow. Behind them, thunder cracked loud, startling Bella. She tugged his hand. Nate! Mr. Carter lifted the lantern higher. Last chance, boy. Come home. Nate looked at Bella, then back at his father. His heart felt split in two, between the roots that held him and the wind that called him. The rain came down harder, drumming against the bridge like war drums. And in that sound, Nate made his choice. He stepped forward. The storm hit like a wild thing let loose. Rain pounded the bridge, the river below swelling and swirling. Hungry. Nate pulled Bella closer, their steps quickening toward the far side. But Mr. Carter didn't back away. He stepped forward too, his lantern swinging wildly. You're not taking one more step, he shouted. I already did. Nate yelled back, his voice echoing into the storm. In an instant, the quiet broke. Mr. Carter lunged, grabbing Nate by the arm. The lantern slipped from his hand, crashing to the bridge floor. Flames hissed as the rain beat them down. Nate twisted, struggling against his father's grip. Bella screamed his name, reaching for him. Let me go, Nate shouted. You're coming home, Mr. Carter roared. Something in Nate snapped, not out of hate but out of desperation. He wrenched his arm free with all his strength, pushing back. Mr. Carter stumbled, just a step, but enough to make the lantern roll off the bridge into the rushing river. For a heartbeat, they all froze, soaked, gasping, their faces lit only by distant lightning. Then Mr. Carter straightened, eyes blazing. If you walk past me, Nate, don't ever come back. The words sliced through the rain. Bella's eyes filled with tears. Nate's chest ached. This was the line. Once crossed, there was no turning back. The bridge felt longer than ever. The rain came down in sheets now, blurring the world. Nate's heart pounded like hooves against dirt. He looked at his father. The man who had raised him, worked beside him, shaped his days. And then he looked at Bella, the girl who made his world bigger, brighter, alive. His father's eyes were cold steel. Bella's eyes were trembling light. Nate squeezed her hand. We keep walking, he whispered. They stepped forward. 1 step, 2, 3. Mr. Carter didn't move. He just stood there, watching his son cross a line no rain could wash away. When they reached the other side, Nate turned once more. His father was a dark figure in the storm, shrinking with every flash of lightning. He wasn't chasing them. He didn't need to. His silence said enough. Bella wrapped her arms around Nate, her forehead against his chest. Are you sure? She whispered. He held her tight. No, but I'd rather be unsure with you than trapped without you. They ran down the road toward the train station, their wet clothes clinging to them, their breaths loud in the night. The storm followed close, but they didn't stop. Not anymore. Behind them, Willow Creek faded into the rain. Ahead of them lay a road unknown. And sometimes that's where the Real story begins. The moon was a thin silver smile that night, hanging low over the fields. The crickets played their tiny violins, and the wind carried whispers through the corn. Nate lay awake in the barn loft, staring at the wooden beams above him, his heart drumming faster than the rain on a tin roof. He couldn't stop thinking about Bella, her laughter like a summer creek, her eyes carrying stories too deep for words. But the danger was growing thicker than night fog. Earlier that day, Old Man Turner had stopped by. He leaned on his walking stick and spat tobacco into the dirt, his eyes squinting like a man who smelled trouble. You keep your boy away from the migrant folks, he warned Nate's father. Trouble grows quick when roots don't match. Nate had heard every word from behind the shed. His father's silence cut deeper than a whip. That silence meant he didn't disagree. So here Nate was, restless and torn. Should he sneak out to see her? Or stay put like a good son? But his heart wasn't listening to rules anymore. It beat for Bella, wild, reckless, alive. He whispered into the darkness, "Meet me by the creek tomorrow night." No matter what. He didn't know if she'd hear, but the night did. And sometimes, the night carries secrets farther than any letter ever could. The next day came with the sun blazing hotter than usual. Work was heavy, sweat was plenty, and suspicion hung in the air like smoke. Bella worked near the corn rows with her father, her scarf slipping down her neck, revealing a tired but determined face. She caught Nate's eyes across the field. Just one glance, one small spark. That was all it took to light the fire that would change everything. Bella waited by the creek that night, her bare toes brushing the cool water. She could hear the frogs croaking, singing their old night songs, as if warning her, "Girl, don't step too deep." But her heart had already crossed that line. She wrapped her arms around herself, glancing toward the path. Was he coming? Or had fear tied his feet down? Then she saw him, Nate, emerging through the tall grass, lantern in hand, his face glowing like a boy carrying forbidden light. They met in silence at first, their breaths the only sound between them. Then Bella spoke softly, "They'll find out, Nate, and when they do..." Her voice trailed off like wind through leaves. Nate stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "I don't care. I'm done hiding in barns and shadows. I want you, Bella. No more sneaking like we're thieves." Her eyes glistened with both love and fear. "Love like ours don't survive in places like this," she whispered. Nate shook his head. "Then we'll make a new place." They talked for hours under that old moon, spinning dreams like threads. But just as Nate leaned in to kiss her goodnight, a snapping sound broke the air. A stick, a heavy breath. Someone was there, hiding in the dark. Nate's hand shot to Bella's, squeezing tight. "Run," he hissed, and like two deer caught in sudden light, they bolted, hearts pounding, feet slapping the earth. Behind them, the darkness stirred, and the night, once soft, suddenly held teeth. The morning came too early. Nate's father stood on the porch, arms crossed, jaw set like stone. "Where were you last night?" he asked, his voice too calm to be safe. Nate tried to play dumb, but the old man wasn't buying it. "Don't lie to me, boy." Folks saw a lantern moving down by the creek. His father stepped closer, his boots heavy against the wood. "You think I don't know what's going on? You think you can shame this family sneaking around with that girl?" Nate's chest burned with anger and fear. "She's not that girl," he snapped. "She's Bella." The slap came fast, sharp as lightning. Silence followed, thicker than molasses. His father's voice dropped low. "You're my son. You'll do as you're told. End this foolishness, or I'll end it for you." Meanwhile, Bella's father had caught wind of their meeting too. He wasn't angry, he was terrified. "We don't belong here, Bella," he said, his voice trembling. "People like them. They can ruin us." Bella stood by the window that night, watching the stars, feeling the world closing in from both sides. Their love wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a spark in a dry forest, and everyone was circling with buckets of water or torches in hand. Something had shifted. Walls were closing in, and neither of them knew if love could be enough to hold the weight of everything coming their way. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in bruised oranges and tired purples. The farm was quiet except for the wind combing through the corn rows, whispering secrets it had no business telling. Nate sat on the back fence, boots hanging, mind spinning. Every word his father had spoken echoed like hammer strikes in his head. "End this foolishness, or I'll end it for you." Down by the workers' tents, Bella's silhouette flickered against the lantern light. Even from a distance, he could tell she was uneasy. She moved slower than usual, like someone who'd seen a storm coming and didn't know whether to run or hold her ground. Nate jumped off the fence. Enough thinking. He needed to see her. He crept through the tall grass, careful not to snap a twig. When he reached the edge of the workers' camp, Bella turned, startled. Then she saw it was him, and her face softened. "Nate," she whispered. "You shouldn't be here. Folks are talking." "I don't care what they say," he replied, stepping closer. "I just need to know. Are you scared?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I'm not scared of you. I'm scared of them." Before Nate could speak, a shadow moved behind one of the tents. A pair of eyes, watchful, stared out. It was Eddie Turner, the landowner's son. He grinned like a cat that found something juicy. Well, Eddie drawled, loud enough for a few heads to turn. "Ain't this sweet?" Bella's heart slammed against her chest. Nate grabbed her hand, and they ran. Again. But this time, Eddie's laughter followed them, sharp and cruel. "Gonna tell Daddy about this," he hollered. "Gonna tell everyone." That night, Nate lay awake, knowing the trouble wasn't just coming anymore. It had already found them. By morning, gossip ran through the fields like wildfire through dry grass. Women at the well whispered behind their hands. Men in dusty hats shook their heads with knowing looks. Eddie had done his job well.